Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmalitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hishikeshendriyatmane Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nivritatmane Swarga Pavargadvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namah Hiranyaviryaya Chaturhotaya Tantave. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining us again for a discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam. We are continuing our discussion of the first canto. In the previous session, the previous two sessions, we covered chapter 8, and the chapter 8 was actually a very, very beautiful rendition of praise by Mother Kunti of the Supreme Lord, of Krishna, and it displayed the most wonderful quality of the internal quality or the Swarup Lakshana of devotional service of Bhakti, which is a pre-qualification, which is complete dependence and complete shelter of devotees of the lotus feet of Krishna and his holy names. And this is an internal quality. This is the only quality which a devotee is supposed to be judged by. And if he displays or she displays qualities of surrender to Krishna and to the holy names, then it is just a matter of time that the world has to wait for manifestation of other external symptoms which are called tatastha, the marginal symptoms of excellence which are found in the devotee. It's just a matter of time. So the primary means of judgment, as we noticed, is for the internal dependence, the dependence of the person on Krishna's mercy. It was very, very beautifully exemplified by the behavior of Mother Draupadi, where despite the extraordinary grief which was caused by the killing of because of the killing of her sons, and she was able to manifest the transcendental qualities of a devotee of the Lord, where she took into account the various factors of the fact that she did not want the wife of Kripacharya to experience same grief by the killing of Ashwatthama. She did not want to have a relative of the most prominent spiritual master of Arjun, Dronacharya. His relatives are also worshipable. She did not want her husband to commit the offense of Guru Aparad. All of these are qualities which are very internal, which are very intrinsic to the nature of being a devotee. And these qualities are displayed by Draupadi, even though there was enough motivation for a mother who is grieving to completely lose control of her emotions and demand that the slayer of her sons be vanquished and killed. So she did not allow her external qualities of being a Kshatriya woman to overcome the beautiful qualities of a Vaishnava, which is all inside. So in other words, this complete dependence is also being seen by the way Uttara, the wife of Abhimanyu, the mother of Maharaj Parikshit, approaches Krishna at the time of devastation. In other words, when Ashwatthama fires an arrow at her womb, wanting to kill the last descendant of the Pandavas, she flees and surrenders to Krishna. And by doing so, that again is a display of the Swarup Lakshana of complete dependence on Krishna. And in that particular chapter, we also looked at the most wonderful quality which is being displayed by these are sadhu. This is a real Vaishnava sadhu quality. And this is what is supposed to be looked for in whilst judging the actions of one another. We are supposed to be looking to see how the person is relating to Krishna by way of their surrender, by way of their service, and so on and so forth. This is our barometer for judgment. The good qualities or the mundane good qualities that are expected will automatically follow. It's just a matter of time. So tolerance, which was displayed by Mother Draupadi, is an example. The tolerance is an external quality which was displayed because internally she was a devotee. So she did not allow the extraordinary grief to overcome her. The discretion of surrendering to Krishna under all circumstances was displayed by Uttara, even though her husband had passed on and there were 5 other children of Draupadi who were killed. She did not lose faith in the ability of the Lord to protect. So she ran to him. She did not run to Arjun. She did not run to Yudhishthira, Bhima. She ran to Krishna, saying only you can protect. So there's faith under all circumstances. Faith when being challenged by extreme circumstances in an extreme environment is real display of the teaching of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya again talks about it in the Sikshashtakam. He says, Trinadapi sunichena, taroriva sahishnuna, amani manadena, kirtane sadahari. The literal application of Trinadapi sunichena is seen in the previous chapter, where there is great tolerance under unbearable pain, and the tolerance is manifesting itself in terms of right action, which is appropriate for a devotee. There is also the ability to completely accept the environment and surrender under all circumstances, understanding that the environment itself has been provided by Krishna, which is displayed by Mother Uttara. And then you have the praising of the presence of Krishna by Mother Kunti, saying that all these calamities are indeed benedictions, because each and every time we had a calamity occur, the overwhelming nature of these calamities was such that we ran to you, or rather, you made yourself available to give us protection, and your proximity to us revealed our own dependence, and it revealed your own wonderful qualities. You know, she was wanting calamities to come upon them so that she would be able to surrender. She would be able to become overwhelmed, surrender, and then experience Krishna consciousness. So this is again a complete focus on wanting to associate with Krishna, no material desire. So there was a display of Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam, Bhakti Uttama. So this is Uttama Bhakti, where she is saying that she is not interested in anything, but she is even interested in calamities, if calamities indeed can bring them closer to Krishna. So this is the prayer of Kunti, Mother Kunti. And this is extraordinary. And what is even more extraordinary is that she is actually comparing herself to Mother Yashoda and saying that I'm not as good as Mother Yashoda, because Mother Yashoda is superior, where she took you, who is the origin of the entire existence, the entire creation, the spiritual and the material existence, and she practically bound you and chastised you and brought you under her control. So you submit yourself to the control of your dear devotees. That happens in Vraja. It happens in Vraja. So this is Shuddha Bhakti Rasa. So she also brought in that particular realization that Mother Yashoda is so extraordinary in her ability to bind you when no one else can. So she was comparing, because even she was a paternal aunt. So she had the role of a mother. So she was comparing her role versus Mother Devaki versus Mother Kunti. So all of this were exemplified by the 8th chapter, and we got to know several principles. Okay, again, as we repeated, we got to know the principle of complete surrender and complete dedication to the holy names and to Krishna. We also saw the principle of what is the quality of a sadhu. We also saw the principle where Lord Chaitanya says that if you are Trinadapi sunichena, Tarori Vasaishnuna, Amani Manadena Kirtane Sadahari. The Kirtane Sadahari can take place if these qualities occur. And we saw the display of these qualities under very extraordinary circumstances. Very, very challenging, extraordinary circumstances which were imposed upon, Mother Kunti, Mother Uttara, and Mother Draupadi, and the Pandavas, the rest of the brothers. Very extraordinary challenges. And all of this was displayed. So this was a practical demonstration of the principles that we normally talk about. Because it's very difficult in the process of devotional service to understand the subtle truth behind what is Trinadapi Sunishana, what is humility, and what is surrender. It's very difficult. The reason it's difficult is because there are so many different ways in which you interpret a word. But then when we read Shastra and when we read the demonstration of these qualities by exalted personalities of being akinchana, being bereft of all material opulences, and then having Krishna and wanting Krishna despite all of those occurrences and wanting those occurrences to happen so that Krishna will come and save them, right? So that they could again have an exchange with Krishna. Different kinds of exchanges exist. Devotees aspire for different kinds of exchanges, right? So all of this is wonderfully seen in the previous chapter. So Srimad Bhagavatam, in reality, is the source of everything else which our acharyas have written about. Inspiration and consistency with Bhagavatam is critical. And you will find again and again that the principles given by Lord Chaitanya, the principles given by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in Madhurya Kadambini, in Harinam Chintamani, all of these are going to be coming out again and again as we go through Srimad Bhagavatam, because these principles themselves were inspired by Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we are going to talk about another extraordinary personality, and this is chapter 9. I'm going to read through the verses, and then I'm going to read the translation. I'll give you commentary. I will comment on the verses as and when they are required. Sutta uvacha iti bitah prajadrohat sarva dharma vivitsaya tato vinashanam pragad yatra deva vrato patat. Sutta Goswami said, being afraid for having killed so many subjects on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira went to the scene of the massacre. There, Bhishmadeva was lying on a bed of arrows, about to pass away. What an extraordinary vow! An extraordinary vow was that he had Ichamrityu. When the first arrow was fired at him, he could have easily killed Arjun. He could have done anything he wanted. He just subjected himself to whatever had to happen so that Arjuna would emerge victorious. In reality, Krishna would emerge victorious. Dharma would be established. The kingdom of Hastinapur would have proper rulers. And then he would be able to pass on. But until then, this is again Trinadapi Sunichena. There he was lying on a bed of arrows, pierced by arrows, for as many days, perhaps, of the war, and after the war as well. He was just waiting for all of this to happen. And he was keeping his consciousness. So one can imagine the quality of the individuals that we are talking about here. Tadate bharataraha sarve sada svaihi swarnabhushitaihi anvagachan rater vipra vyasa daumadhyayashtata. At the time, all his brothers followed him on the battle on beautiful chariots drawn by first-class horses decorated with gold ornaments. With them were Vyasa and rishis like Daumya, the learned priest of the Pandavas, and others. Bhagavan api viprarshe ratena cha dhananjaya sater vyaro chatanrupaha kuveraihi iva guhyakaihi. O sage amongst the Brahmanas, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, also followed, seated on a chariot with Arjuna. Thus King Yudhishthira appeared very aristocratic, like Kuvera, surrounded by his companions, the Guhyakas. Drishtva nipatitam bhumau divaschutam ivamaram prane muhu pandava bhishmam sanugaha sahachakrina. Seeing him, Bhishma, lying on the ground like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava king Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Sri Krishna, bowed down before him. So here Krishna, he is following etiquette as required in terms of a family circumstances. This was not a public assembly, this was a family circumstance. So he was behaving as a junior brother or a younger brother of Yudhishthira, where the king Yudhishthira is bowing down to his great-grandfather, great-grand-uncle, and Krishna is also bowing down to Bhishmadeva in the same manner, in respecting the social etiquette. Tratra Brahmarashiyah sarve devarashiyascha sattamam rajarashiyascha tatrasan drashtum bharatapunggavam. Just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharata, Bhishma, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis amongst the demigods, brahmanas and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. Parvato narado daumyo Bhagavan Badarayana Brahadaswo Bharadvajah Sashiyo Renuka Sutah Vasishta Indra Pramadas Trito Gritsamadositah Kakshivan Gautamotischa Kaushikot Satudashanah. All the sages like Parvata Muni, Narada, Daumya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Brihadashva, Bharadvaja, and Parashurama, and disciples Vashishta, Indrapramada, Trita, Gritsamada, Ashita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, and Sudarshana were present. One can read the purport of this verse to understand the greatness of these personalities. I do not want to go into it because I want to stay with the theme of being able to talk about Sri Bhishmadeva and his message. So I want to cover as much as I can today so that we could subsequently conclude this chapter in the next session on Thursday. Anye cha munayo brahman brahma ratadayo malaha sishye rupeta ajagmuhu kashyapangirasadayah Angirasa Adhyaha, and many others like Sukadeva Goswami and other purified souls, Kashyapa and Angirasa and others, all accompanied by the respective disciples, arrived there. So when a personality as great as Lord Sri Bhishma was to leave, the assembly around him automatically occurs because of the quality of the person is such that they are there to glorify, assist in any manner possible, and to render the environment suitable for this great personality to leave. It's very important. So the point which we're trying to make here is that the circumstances of birth and the circumstances of death are both karmically ordained. One is born under certain circumstances with people surrounding them in a certain place, with certain facilities. One also leaves under similar circumstances. One's departure is also karmically ordained. It should not be thought that one death is the same as the other. The circumstances of death are as diverse as the circumstances of birth. And the diversity or the distinction of how one passes is seen by whom they are surrounded by at the time of passing, okay, or the place of passing, so on and so forth. Here you find that there is a great personality who has made an ultimate sacrifice, who has exemplified himself as a devotee, as a Kshatriya, as a ruler, and as personality who has the maximum ability for sacrifice. It was an extraordinary amount of sacrifice made by Bhishmadeva for duty and for preserving dharma. So automatically you have a great assembly wanting to see him, because they are wanting to learn and they are wanting to hear his words, because people like him might speak words at the time of passing, which he is going to do, and those words are going to be very valuable. That was the reason why there was a very big gathering when Sukadeva Goswami spoke to Sri Parikshit Maharaj. When the emperor of the entire planet is sitting down preparing for death, then such an assembly is worthwhile, because their exchanges which are going to come forth will benefit the entire humanity. Because the situation is such that all priorities would be thrown away and then they would bring in the most important aspects of discussion. So people who want to listen would come by. Tan sametan mahabhagan upalabhya vasuttamah pujayam asa dharmagyo deshakala vibhagavit. Bhishmadeva, who was the best amongst the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis who assembled there, for he knew perfectly all the religious principles according to time and place. So he was able to receive them. In other words, he was able to accord perhaps words of welcome which were appropriate. He was not able to get up. He was bound down to the bed of arrows. He was completely incapacitated, but he was able to receive them based on the time. So here Prabhupada gives the purport that one can execute their duty by physical work, and if not able to, they can execute based on mentally, they can also execute by words based on the circumstances. So there are circumstances where one can execute their duty at different levels, and it's accepted. Okay, I've heard of personalities who engage in very conscious sleeping. And the process of very conscious sleeping, while sleeping, allows them to burn and execute the karmic reactions. When they have intense karmic reactions in general, when executed on the physical plane, are far more challenging and difficult to execute than if the same could be executed mentally. So many souls have the ability to execute, powerful souls. They have to be very powerful. They have the ability to execute and burn away karmic reactions by acting in a dreamlike state. Right? In English, we call it lucid dreaming, because people have very poor consciousness. Their lucid dreaming normally is quite not so efficient. But if consciousness is very high and they know the art and the science of being able to dream, or rather sleep or rest, then the execution of dharma whilst lying down is also very efficient, because it is occurring in the subtle plane. There's very little resistance and it occurs quite smoothly. You see, you don't have to wait for traffic, you don't have to get into the subway, you don't have to do anything. You can execute, and there is no time and space restriction where one can travel, one can execute. So sometimes there can be opportunity, if well known how to do so, to be able to burn karmic reactions whilst resting, so that even the period of resting is not wasted. So for example, I know sometimes there could be a need for examples when we speak of mystic situations. People who have the role of guiding others, they can guide multiple souls who are connected to them in multifarious ways by appearing in their dreams and giving them instructions. By doing so, they are executing their duty while they're resting. They're not wasting the time. And at the same time, they're accomplishing quite a few things, because now they're connecting to multiple disciples and so on and so forth, whilst the disciples themselves are sleeping. And the guru is also sleeping, but then guru is giving instructions while sleeping. So he's entering into the dreamlike state and shifting karmic reactions of the disciples. So, and sometimes very advanced spiritualists, they also get to meet great personalities and receive instructions. So there are many things that can be done at a subtle level to someone who is very skilled in using the subtle body, someone who is very skilled. So Bhishmadeva's lying down, but yet being able to receive all these great personalities, was done mentally, and that was acknowledged as efficient as being done physically. Krishnam chatat prabhavajnam ashinam jagadishwaram hridistam pujayamasa mayayopata vigraham. Lord Sri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhishmadeva, and since Bhishmadeva knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. So Sri Bhishmadeva, he worships Krishna because he understood who this is in front of him. He had no confusion. So he was worshipping him. Most fortunate, right, where everybody passes on, and they would be very grateful if they were to be able to have some connection to the Supreme Lord. And here, how elevated must Bhishmadev be that Krishna himself appears before him. He's there, and there he is, practically wanting to assist in the passage in a very efficient manner. So how great and how amazing a personality would Sri Bhishma be that Krishna himself chooses to appear before him at the time of passing. Very remarkable. Very remarkable. And how amazingly, till the very last minute, he's doing his duty. Even while lying on a bed of arrows, the Supreme Lord is in front of him. He's continuing his duty of instructing Yudhishthira in transcendental truths and the truth of managing the universe. And at the same time, he has this opportunity for leaving in such an auspicious manner right in front of Krishna. Panduputran upasinan prashraya prema sangatan abhya chastunorag gashrer andibhutena chakshusha. The sons of Maharaj Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for the dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhishmadev congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. What an amazing group. There you have the grandsons who practically put the old man on a bed of arrows. And then there is the grandfather, Bhishmadev, who was ecstatic in seeing the same perpetrators, and they were, both of them knew what was happening. What an amazing circumstance where Bhishmadev is crying tears of ecstasy, not tears of pain. There he was in pain, but he was not suffering. There's another example. Last week we spoke about it. He was in pain, but he was not suffering. You see, otherwise, where would there be ecstasy and love? He would have looked at Arjuna and said, "You put me on the bed of arrows. I condemn you." But that was not happening. There he was in ecstasy, love, and affection. Aho kashtam, aho nyayam, aho anyayam, aho kashtam, aho nyayam, yad yuyam dharmanandanaha, jivatum narhata klishtam, vipradharma chutashrayah. Bhishmadev said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you are protected by the Brahmanas, God and religion." This is an amazing display of Vaishnava quality. Number one, he is not suffering, Bhishmadev, even though he is in intense pain. He is in intense pain, he is tolerating his pain, he is not suffering. But he is saying and looking at the Pandavas and making a comment saying, he was actually feeling bad, saying, "Oh, you have suffered. What is your terrible suffering?" He was actually able to look at the suffering of the Pandavas. He was saying, "You have suffered such terrible injustices. You have suffered, terrible sufferings. And why should you have to suffer all of this? You are the sons of religion personified." Okay? Not all of them were sons of Yamaraj, Dharma. Yudhishthira Maharaj was. But Yudhishthira Maharaj was the guide. He was the intelligence. It was by his instruction, but was by his instruction that the rest of the Pandavas executed. So what an amazing display of Vaishnava quality, of being able to completely have empathy of the suffering of others, even though this person is suffering. He's suffering. He's in deep pain, but he has the ability to focus selflessly on the pain of others. And he's able to visualize the pain of the Pandavas. and he is speaking very sincerely, saying, "You have suffered injustices." What an amazing quality. And then he is also saying, he's giving us an instruction here. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion, which is a very important instruction. The instruction is that what was protecting them? What was protecting the Brahmanas under all kinds of grave danger that was being imposed upon by the Kauravas? Grave danger which they were thrust into by the machinations of Shakuni, by the planning of Duryodhana. They were put into such terrible danger that none of them should have survived under normal circumstances. What is it which allowed them to survive? Bhishmadeva is telling them that you would not have survived except that the Brahmanas, God, and religion protected you. Right? Vipra dharma achyuta ashrayaha. Vipra dharma achyuta ashrayaha. Ashraya, protection, is being given by Vipra, the learned, because you're following Shastra, you're following Dharma, and then you also had complete shelter of Krishna. So there was complete protection. So what is the real kavacha one can really wear is the protection of Sadhu Shastra Guru and being able to execute the dharma of being a servant of Krishna and being able to take complete shelter. This is real protection. Nothing can harm the person if Krishna decides to protect. Samsthite tirate pandau pritha bala prajavaduhu yusmat krate bahun kleshan prapta tokavati muhu. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great general Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal also because of your actions. Right? Because of your actions. Sarvam kalakritam manye bhavatam chayad apriyam sapalo yad vashe loko vayoriva ganavalihi. Ganavalihi. Ganashyama is Krishna, who is dark-hued as the dense blackish clouds. This is Gana Valihi, a line of clouds. Gana Avilihi, line of clouds. In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time under whose control everyone and every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. Yatra dharma suto raja gadapanir vikrodaraha krishnos trigandivam chapam suhrit krishnas tato vipat. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion, Dharmaraj? Bhima, the great fighter with a club. The great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all, the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. Very logical. When all of this is present and such opulence is present, yet the Pandavas were put into such tribulation. What else could be the reason other than the extraordinary influence of time, Kala? Nahiyasya kachchidrajan puman veda viditsitam yad vijigyasa yukta mukhyanti kavayopihi. O king, no one can know the plan of the Lord. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. So philosophical inquiry is not going to give any answer in terms of knowing what Krishna is planning. My spiritual master used to comment as a joke. He used to say the best way to make Krishna laugh is to go tell him your plans. Okay, we are so arrogant that we make so many different amazing plans, and planning should be there. But he used to just joke saying, go tell Krishna your plans, because whatever is going to happen according to his plans. So go tell him your plans, just to make him laugh. Tasmadidam daivatantram vyavasya bharatarashabah tasyanu vihito natapahi prajah prabho. O best among the descendants of Bharata, Yudhishthira, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. So he was trying to console Yudhishthira, who is inconsolable. Yudhishthira, being very soft-hearted, being a Vaishnava, he could not quite accept the fact that such destruction had to come by, and such great personalities such as Bhishma and Drona had to leave for, ultimately, for him to, ascend the throne. So he was not able to accept that. And he's trying to console him, saying, this is not your plan. This is not something which was machinated. It was not something where you manipulated like the modern day politicians, where there's constant manipulation. They get elected to office for 5 years, 4 years, as the case may be. They just don't have any time for governance. All they're trying to do is hold on to their seat, because they have to constantly engage in machinations to just keep their seat. Nothing productive happens in any capital, be it Washington or Delhi or wherever. Nothing productive. It's very difficult, because all they do is they have to preserve their seat for the next 5 years, and then the opposition does not allow them to accomplish anything. For whatever reason, they're constantly opposed, and then they come elected, and then they fight for the next 5 years, and it's a farce. It's a very big farce, a necessary farce, but it's a farce. So Yudhishthira did not want to. He was not like the modern day emperors. He was a modern day presidents and prime ministers and so on. He was an exalted Vaishnava. He was a Rajarishi. He was internally qualified, completely surrendered, and a personal associate of the Lord as well, because the Lord was with him at all times with the Pandavas. And he was completely inconsolable that such a heavy price had to be paid for ascending and sitting on the throne. And then there was some consolation which was being given, saying, no, you're here to rule. Don't get distracted. Esha vai Bhagavan Sakshat Adyo Narayanah Puman Mohan Maya Lokam Gurascharati Vishnishu. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us. And he's bewildering us with his self-created energy. You see, this is something which is realized knowledge which has to be passed on by Bhishmadeva to others. So he is practically giving instructions on the personality of Godhead, who is present right in front of him in complete realization. Because it's very bewildering when Krishna comes and then he pays obeisances like an ordinary person to Bhishmadeva and so on. Bhishma did not want those things to become distractions. He wanted to ensure that Yudhishthira Maharaj and others, remember very clearly in whose company they were. Asyanubhavam Bhagavan Veda Guhyatmam Shivaha Devarishir Narada Sakshat Bhagavan Kapilo Nripa. O King, Lord Shiva, Narada, the sage amongst the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. Through direct contact. Yam manyase matuleyam priyam mitram suhritmam akorah sachivam dutam sauhridat adasaratim. O King, that personality whom out of ignorance only you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc., is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Sarvatmanah samadrisho hiya advayasyana hankit kritehe tatkritam mati vaishamyam niravadesya nakvachit being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is freed from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Tatapi ekanta bhakteshu pasya bhupanukampitam yanme sumstyajatah sakshat krishno darshanamagatah. Yet, despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. Amazing. He is saying, despite his being equally kind to everyone, right? He is equally kind to everyone. He has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. So, being an unflinching servitor, this is special consideration. But do not take this as being partial. Krishna is not being partial because he is coming before me. He is coming before me because I'm an unflinching servitor. So he is simply wanting to reciprocate, which is natural. You see, God is not partial. He does not operate on the false ego like we do. We differentiate. You see, we cannot take instructions from those who are inimical to us. We do not take instructions from those who criticize us. We find it difficult, right? We are steeped in duality. God is not. Krishna is not under the influence of material energy of duality. He is impartial. Even though he is impartial, he comes before me because I am his unflinching servitor. He is reciprocating. So this is like a school teacher in a classroom. If he or she treats the A grade regular student who never even misses a class, who is very reciprocative, very attentive, participates in a very proactive manner, is very helpful, so on and so forth. If she were to treat such a person in the same way as someone who misses, plays mischief in the class, disturbs the class, does not do his work properly, is a poor student, then that is not considered to be fair. What is fair is the fellow who is sincere has to be treated in a certain way, and the fellow who is insincere has to be treated in a certain way. So here Bhishmadeva is qualifying, saying, don't take this Krishna as being partial. He has not come here. He has come here because, I am his unflinching servitor. I am a devotee. So he has come here because I am devoted to him. He is reciprocating. Bhaktya veshyamano yasmin vachayan nama kirtayan tyajan kalevaram yogi muchyate kamakarmibihi. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation and by chanting of the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting the material body. If Krishna appears in the mind at the time of quitting the body for his dear devotee, then all karmic reactions are immediately vanquished and the person is fully free to move forward, completely free. You see, I'm going to stop right here, and in the next session we'll take up the remaining 20 verses, because there's a lot of information about duties and dharma and so on, and we will be doing all of that in the next session. The Bhishmadeva's instructions in the Mahabharata and in the Srimad Bhagavatam are very potent in being able to enunciate principles of management, principles of leadership, so on and so forth. So we'll be touching upon all of that in the subsequent session. Okay, we'll stop right here and see if you have any questions, any comments for this. Ajay Govind Prabhu. We observe Gita Jayanti in December, but Bhishma Panchaka at the end of the Kartik month. This was the time when Bhishma left body, but Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita before Bhishma left body. What was the duration after war when Bhishma left body? It was around after 11 calendar months that he left body in the next Kartik. Otherwise, it appears that Bhishma left body in November and Bhagavad Gita was spoken in December. 2 points I would like to make. One, both have to be true. So what is the condition which will make both true? The only way both would be true is that when it did occur, this particular month when Gita was spoken, right? It was possibly spoken at a time when the time factor, it was 5,000 years ago in a different yuga altogether. It was not Kali. The time factor could have been different. Okay? Shastra cannot be wrong, and it will be very difficult for us to make adjustments based on our current count of time. The time factor could have been different during Dwapar Yuga. That is number one. The count of months can be different. There are many things which could be very different in Dwapar Yuga. So Shastra, when they say that the last 5 days of Kartik is called Bhishma Panchaka, right? It perhaps has other connotations, but it can always be justified because of the fact that the time factor could have been very different when the Bhagavad Gita and the Kurukshetra war was spoken and how it is being observed in modern day. For example, a Tithi which is occurring in this year changes in the subsequent year. If something were to occur 5,000 years back, there could be the influence of time where it changes quite dramatically in terms of the present day. There are adjustments that are being made, okay? But it's a good question. It's a very good observation. I never thought about it. It's a good observation. Perhaps I will look into it further and I will comment on it. But at this time, my comment to you on this question is, the only comment that I can think of is understanding that time shifts. And the shifting of time could have caused this particular statement to appear, where the last 5 days of Kartik plus the passing of Bhishma. So we have to find out what exactly is an overlap. Okay, I don't pay attention to this. I didn't pay attention until now. I was more keen on observing the fact that this was occurring. What was significant was, let me just read one more verse. One moment. I'm just seeing that in the Bhagavatam, there is one more verse further out in the same chapter. Okay. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that this is verse 29. This is verse 29 of the same chapter. Okay. It is said, Dharmam pravadatas tasya sakalaha pratyupastitaha yo yoginas chandamrityor vanchitas tutara uttarayanaha. Okay. This particular verse is verse 29 in the same chapter. Okay. Now let's leave the Kartik example out. Let's remove that. Okay. Because that's where the confusion is coming in, where we're mixing the concept of last 5 days of Kartik as being Bhishma Panchaka, and being Bhishma Panchaka, it should coincide with the passing of Bhishmadeva, and he should have passed on in November and so on. But now Kartik could have occurred in different times. I'm making a statement saying Kartik could have occurred in different times because the calendar that we are using now is very different from the calendar that's using. In other words, we are comparing the November, December of the English calendar with the occurrence of the Vedic calendar, the lunar calendar. So there could be some overlap. Let's leave that out, but there is more proof on when did he pass on, because there was some anxiety. So the translation here is, while Bhishmadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. The sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere is Uttarayana. Uttarayana starts with Makara Shankranti. Okay, so the Shankranti of the sun's course entering into Makara is occurring when he continues to speak. Okay, and that occurs approximately, let's say this month. I think it is mid-January when sun moves into Makara. The sun is in Dhanush. From Dhanush, when it moves into Makara, it becomes Makara Shankranti, and that particular Shankranti is Uttarayana, the sun's northern course. So there's a very significant verse because the yogis, they would like to leave their bodies in Uttarayana. And the reason is that all the demigods who are available to assist of the passage of the body from one stage to the other, they are awake. So the sun's northern course from Makara to Kataka is considered to be the daytime of the Devas. The southern course is from Cancer to Sagittarius, 6 months. So he wanted to leave, and he was waiting to leave in the northern course. Okay, the reason is all the Devas would be awake, and they would be able to assist in the passage, because it's a passage. It's a travel from the soul has to travel all the way, and you need the demigods to be awake to facilitate. And I'm bringing this to context. I'm bringing this to context because when my spiritual master was planning his departure, at that time, there was some contact between me and the devotees who were carrying, because he had inquired and asked the devotees to ask me about this particular system of when the sun is going to go into the northern course and so on and so forth. Okay, there was some amount of discussion at that point in time. I remember that, and he was particular. He wanted to know, because he wanted to know where the sun was, whether it was in the northern course and the southern course and all that. This was during the last few days before he became completely silent. One of his caretakers, Brahmamurta Prabhu, contacted me at that point in time because Guru Maharaj wanted him to check with me on that particular factor. I remember that. And anyway, he passed on in July, so there was no consequence. But then between that particular time and September, the sun enters into the southern course, and it's very close actually. Coincident with Chaturmasya, it enters into Cancer. So that way he was a little worried about it. Not worried, he was wanting to know how to plan. He had control. He was a very, very, very advanced, extraordinary personality. So a very advanced soul, servant of Srila Prabhupada, servant of Krishna. So he had complete discretion on when to leave. So he had the ability to plan. So he was wanting to know. Anyway, I'm just bringing this up because this is telling us that this occurred in January. Okay, based on the present calendar. It occurred when the sun is in the northern course, his departure. So there is some confusion. I do admit there is some confusion as far as the Bhishma Panchaka Vrata is concerned. Okay, so I will investigate that, because this is telling me that his departure occurred, closer to January when the sun enters Makara. So I will let you know anyways. Thank you for the question. Any other question? Can you explain what should devotees do to ensure that what happens in the political sphere, where conflicts are natural, does not happen in spiritual community? Should we take up services or just do services assigned? I'm not sure if I understood your question. What happens in political sphere is where we unnecessarily manipulate to maintain power, we unnecessarily manipulate to maintain position, but not with the focus of wanting to render service. Okay, that is understood. Or we don't want to come into the spiritual atmosphere or the spiritual organization with motives for power. That is also factually understood. So your question is, should we take up services or just do service as assigned? So what is that part? Could you clarify that part? I'm going to wait for a moment while you type it out. So, Taruni Radha Mataji, I'm going to call you Taruni Radha Mataji. We'll get used to your name. I'm waiting for your clarification. Should we take up service or just do service assigned? I'm waiting for clarification of that statement. I'm not clear. That's why I just need some clarification. So, as far as we are concerned, in ISKCON or in following the footsteps of the Vaishnavas who have preceded us, we are wanting to have only one desire of wanting to serve. So, sincerely, we want to serve. That should be our motive internally. Externally, that motive will manifest itself in terms of opportunity. That opportunity can be something which we take up on our own, or it could be something which we are assigned. So, should we take initiative to render service for pleasing Krishna, or just wait for the services to come? When we take initiative, this may not please someone. Okay, I think I answered that. The answer is that we want to be sensitive to others. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, we should not be hesitant to render service and render and take up duties. We should not be hesitant, if especially we believe it's beneficial. We should not be hesitant. So we should be sensitive to an organization in terms of how to operate and so on and so forth. But that sensitivity should not prevent us from doing our duty. So we should make an attempt to ensure that we are able to present our ideas, we are able to present and convince our, whoever has to be convinced in terms of, being able to render service if we believe it is going to be beneficial to the mission of Lord Chaitanya. So there should be no hesitation whatsoever in being able to speak the truth. But there has to be sensitivity because it's an organization. It's as simple as that. So to answer your question, should we take up initiative to render service for pleasing Krishna, or should we just wait for the service to come? When we take initiative, this may not please someone. The most important thing that we want to do is wanting to fix ourselves internally in wanting to be very sincere in being able to render pure devotional service. So the internal fixing of rendering pure devotional service may manifest itself externally as someone assigning to us, or it may manifest as as an intelligence, as the super soul guiding us, saying, do this because it's going to help many people. And then comes how best to do it. Then there can be some reflection, there can be some direction in terms of how best to execute something. Then there could be some more introspection before we actually execute. So there's a lot of opportunity for avoiding conflicts. There's a lot of opportunity. There's no need for us to think that if you want to take proactive action, if you're going to do positive things with very sincere mood of wanting to serve Krishna, there would be conflicts. Not necessarily. We can take some precautions to avoid conflicts if there is scope for it anyways. So the point which I'm trying to make is fix yourself internally. Internal fixing is going to occur with the chanting of the holy names. When you're supposed to be calling out the holy names, the internal preparation would automatically occur. It would occur. There would be no need for you to speculate. It would automatically occur and then it would come about. These motivations would come. Then you align those motivations by checking with seniors as to whether it's indeed proper. Okay, always good to take an opinion, right? From people whom you believe you have contact with, whom you believe can direct you, whom you are receptive to, and then also take the time, place, and circumstances into account and execute. So there should be no hesitation in being able to bring forth and speak the truth if you can offer services. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I don't see any more questions. It's 9:30. I'm going to end the session now, and then we'll again meet on Thursday at 8:30, and we'll continue further on chapter 9. I'm requesting you, devotees, to kindly read the chapter, read the purport. This way, you could have a very engaging class, because I would be reading the purport, and I would be reading the translations and the purport and the verses. I will be speaking about it, and you also come prepared, so that there would be a good exchange. You see, when you are prepared, internally, Krishna would also allow me to speak things in a manner which will suit a prepared audience. You see, it's an automatic arrangement. So when the audience comes prepared, is surcharged, is knowledgeable, then the speaker also is empowered by the parampara to address the queries and the inquiries of a cultured audience. So it is important for you to come prepared as well, to take full advantage, because I would also receive the benefit of being able to address your concerns and your questions and so on, as Krishna would empower me to do so. Okay, it's actually very subtle, but that's how it works. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.